Chair.
The Honourable Joe Goodhue.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Well, I rise to take this call as not only Minister for Food Safety but also as the Associate Minister for Primary Industries with responsibility for forestry. I'd like to acknowledge the Primary Industries Committee Chair, Ian McKelvey, and the other members of the committee. And on reading the report, the Financial Review report from this year, there are a number of things that I want to touch on in the course of my short address this evening. The first of those is the 1080 threat, and the second of those is going to be food safety in general, because members of the opposition certainly need to hear a wee bit more about putting this in context. It is quite amazing to me always how memories of the opposition fade in terms of what was present at the time when they were the government. So I want to talk a little bit about what our government has been doing. And let's start with 1080. So a criminal threat, and we must always remember it was a criminal threat to contaminate formula and other product. A heinous threat. And at the most vulnerable, the babies that would be drinking formula and the potential for harm, in fact death, of babies, really struck at the heart of New Zealand. But from the time that threat was received, the Ministry of Primary Industries worked alongside of New Zealand Police, who were investigating this matter. The Ministry of Primary Industries brought into being a complete response that they had certainly learned a lot from the WPC 80 inquiry and the recommendations out of that, and were able to stand up a response that meant that they looked at the whole of the supply chain. I will refute one of the statements that was made by a member of the Primary Industries Committee. Well, it appeared to be through the report that they were concerned about, in fact, that there would be compromises and divergent interests within MPI in terms of dealing with an incident like that. Far from this. Far from this. What the response to the 1080 threat showed was that MPI had at interest the safety of the consumer absolutely front and centre. That they were able to work right across the supply chain of those products in order to work with the sector, in order to work right from farm gate, where the milk was being collected, right the way through processing, through the retail chain, and then onto our export markets, and to prepare the whole of that supply chain for a far better security, so that we could be able to stand in front of the public of New Zealand and say, this product is now likely, because of the security on our supply chain, to be safer than it was before. I want to move on to what we learned from WPC 80. It is very sad to think that the opposition think that all of the woes that were exposed by the various inquiries of the WPC 80 were only present under the national government. How short-sighted that is. We heard the former Deputy Minister talk about the fact that this was all down to national. The member simply must be joking. So the things that have come out of the WPC 80 inquiry, we now have a Food Safety Science Research Centre where the business plan is currently being constructed. We have a Food Safety Assurance and Advisory Council. We have had 2 traceability reports. We are rolling that out across not just dairy, but also the rest of the food sector as well. You see, this country now understands how important traceability is because of the false alarm over botulism and the inquiries that were happening subsequent to that. So there is quite a lot of work under the food safety portfolio that I can tell you the Ministry of Primary Industries is turning itself to, alongside of the fact that, unlike before it came into MPI, we are now seeing increasing numbers of prosecutions for food that is not safe for our local New Zealanders to be consuming, and what we require in order to export what is $47 billion worth of food each year, $29 billion worth of food manufacturing receipts, $29.3 billion worth of food itself we export. We need the other countries that take our food to trust us, to see us as a reliable supplier of safe, high-quality food, and that depends on our reputation. I can tell this House that I believe our reputation is even better now than it was because of our transparency, because of the work we're doing, because we share our knowledge as a nation around food safety processes with other countries that are developing countries.